Welcome back, everyone, to another video, and we're finally talking about college basketball again, Rick.
It's amazing. It's like the college basketball channel is going to talk about college basketball.
We're finally talking about college basketball. So as last week, the top 25 was just announced. So we're going to go more just see what changes happened from last year to this year and kind of give like our own little predictions about what's going to be like for the top 25 come towards the end of the season. And obviously we're going to be talking about our team, Gonzaga, as well, since they were number one. But before we get to all that, we have to make a huge shout out to a lot of these not so mid-major teams that are either ranked or getting votes, and big list of ones that are getting votes: the Richmond Spiders, St. Louis, SDSU, Loyola Chicago, BYU, Northern Iowa, and UNC Greensboro, all receiving votes. And I actually do want to give a little bit of a shout out. It's not a mid-major conference teams, but they aren't major conference teams either. So I just want to give them a little bit of a shout out to Memphis, who is receiving votes, and number 17, Houston, as well as a former mid-major conference team, University of Connecticut, UConn.
They don't count. They don't count.
This is their first season in the Big East. Last year they were still in the Missouri Valley Conference. Then
UConn? No, UConn was ACC.
ACC?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay.
So UConn, the AAC, by the way, not ACC. If we're gonna be that technical, I actually think they were Missouri Valley Conference, but anyways, but we'll also give a huge shout out to University of Connecticut, UConn, who just joined the Big East this year. They were in a mid-major conference last year, so we'll see if they'll basically be like Creighton, just climb the ladder back up again. Maybe we'll see another dynasty of UConn again soon in the Big East. But again, I know you guys aren't mid-majors, but you guys aren't major conferences either, and we just kind of want to give you a shout out there as well.
But also you suck.
And finally, the biggest of shout outs to the only not so mid-major team that is in the top 25 and just so happens to be number one. You want to say who it is?
Is it Gonzaga?
Yes, it is Gonzaga. Gonzaga University. Mark Few can finally cross off yet another thing off the checklist that a college basketball coach has, and all that he has left is just to do the thing. It feels like
thing.
He just needs to do the thing.
He does the thing.
He better do the thing.
Honestly, I hope he doesn't do the thing this year because of the big fat asterisks.
There will not be an asterisk this year. This is going to be a hard year too. So not only is Gonzaga the number one team in the nation this year for preseason, they are the first private school since 1984-1985, Hoyas of Georgetown, to be preseason number one.
Is that Patrick Ewing's?
I have no idea. I didn't do that much research, to be honest. But so they're the first private school since the first private school in the last 36 years to do that. But also look at the top three. You have Gonzaga, you have Baylor, and you have Villanova. Top three is dominated by private schools, and it's by quite some time. It's by a noticeable gap. Gonzaga has 1,541 votes. Baylor just behind by one with 1,540. And Villanova with 1,501. And then a drop to fourth with Virginia with 1,364. So it's dominated by these three private schools.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we are Gonzaga fans, and we will be talking about the roster and what to expect for the season. But first, let's just kind of go through the top 25, what changes happened last year, and specifically we'll look at what were the preseason rankings last year, what were the final rankings last year, and what were the changes that happened on that season, and what were the changes from last year to this year for those final rankings to this year's preseason rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So last year in the preseason rankings, we saw mid-major conference schools of Gonzaga, Utah State, St. Mary's College, and Virginia Commonwealth University all in the top 25. And then at the end of the season, it was Gonzaga, Dayton, San Diego State, and BYU all in the top 25. St. Mary's and Utah State did drop out of the top 25, but were still receiving votes. But BYU and San Diego State to start the season last year did not have a single vote. But Dayton did have 25 votes, so they were on the board with just one. But they were able to climb the ranks and get into the top 5 at least. I think they finished 4 last year.
Something like that. There was talk about having 2 mid-majors as 1 seeds, which was making a lot of people upset.
Yeah, and then, I mean, if you threw in San Diego in that mix too, there could have been 3 at one point. So, Rick, if you remember, last year, it felt like quite literally anyone could have won the tournament, especially what we were seeing with all these mid-major schools. I mean, there was a total of 13 mid-major conference schools receiving votes out of the 44 schools. That is nearly 30%. Just under 30% of all those schools last year were mid-major conferences. And this year, it's starting off with just 8 out of the 43 receiving votes, which is under 20%. So what... Is this a year that's going to go back to a power conference, or is it just going to be maybe we'll see a mid-major team coming out?
Well, that's an interesting point. Last year, everybody was really high on Gonzaga, talking about how there was a very realistic chance they'd win the national title, and I didn't see it. I didn't like the Zags' chances to win the title last year because I didn't see them as being exceptionally strong or dominating. Because I was focused on Gonzaga, not the whole entirety of college basketball. But as you pointed out, there is no big name player. There was no Zion. There was no R.J. Barrett, and there was no Brandon Clark. So it's like there was nobody to take over and give you a run through the tournament. And thus, there was that parity. Whichever team gelled during the month of March was going to have the best shot. And also, coaching was going to play a much bigger role. And I like Mark Few's coaching. So that there's that factor. But you just mentioned that last year, out of the 43 schools receiving votes, only 8 schools, so about 18%. Well, if we look at this year, that we're starting out with about 20% of the mid-majors receiving votes as well. So it's starting in the same place. Could it end up in that place? Honestly, yes. With the fluctuating scheduling from the virus and all of the other factors, there is definitely the chance that some power schools will fall down the rankings within their conference, and suddenly you're looking at an 8-10 Syracuse, who's not going to be a top 10 school when they realistically could have been 18-10 and been a top 25. And so a big showing last year out of ACC teams with Memphis, Houston, and Cincinnati point to the changes that can happen during the season with the likes of SF Austin beating Duke, and Northern Iowa taking down Colorado, and Evansville beating Kentucky. All of those show that the mid-majors can take down the power teams, but without those games at all, you have the power teams chewing up the other power teams while the mid-majors can roll their conferences.
Right. And I actually do want to mention the fact that Evansville beating Kentucky, they did not win a single conference game last year. I just want to point that out. It's still hilarious to me that Kentucky lost to Evansville. That did not, and I forget the conference that Evansville is in, but honestly, it's not a good conference. But they were at the bottom of it. They could literally not have gone any worse in conference last year. So that's right. Let's also switch focus onto the ranking changes that also happened last year, specifically in the beginning and the final results. As we mentioned before, St. Mary's and Utah both lost their rankings, but still got votes. Dayton had only 2 losses last year to Kansas and a really good Colorado team last year, both of which were actually in overtime. BYU with wins over Houston, Utah State, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga. Then we still saw wins from what you were mentioning before with those receiving votes, SF Austin over Duke, We don't see some teams in the top 25 at the end of the season, like Florida, UNC, Xavier, LSU. I know with North Carolina, there were quite a bit of injuries. There's a lot of things going on with UNC, and I'm not quite sure with what was going on with the other schools. But they also dropped out of the top 25, and that's when we saw the emergence of a lot of these mid-major schools. However, does it help that teams have less out-of-conference games this year? You were kind of mentioning that before, that there are some changes to the schedule that even some people had to make those changes within the last month, too. And also just to limit themselves traveling. Will this change? Because we won't see those upsets, those big upsets that we saw last year and the previous years because of what's going on.
So the problem for the mid-majors this year is TV contracts. It's the familiarity of seeing them on TV is going to lead to the AP poll votes. The AP poll doesn't have time to watch roughly 180 basketball games every weekend. So they're going to rely on what they see on primetime TV, and they're going to focus on the current top 25 to see which games they should pay attention to. So that's going to lead to a lot of focus on the power schools and not very much focus on those mid-majors. Because Gonzaga is the only mid-major receiving votes in the rankings, in the top 25 rankings, you're going to get WCC games, and I think BYU can slide into the top 25. Everybody's really high on Mark Pope in his second year, and he's talking about how this is one of the best BYU teams he's ever seen.
Oh my God, the transfer from Purdue this year.
So they're going to be stacked. But it's a down year in the rest of WCC. So there's going to be a lot of mixing and mashing, and there's going to be some teams jumping up and down. I don't know why people sleep on Stoudemire at Pacific. He's put together a fantastic squad with roster restrictions. I think this is his first year with a full roster.
I think this year is the first year without those sanctions. Because I remember last year there was still like that 4-year period, obviously, because it was like those first 2 years he couldn't have done anything, and then I think this is now the first year where he actually had choice over everyone.
He's got guys who play hard and they play good defense and they get wins, and so that's the concern I have, is a lack of TV exposure for the mid-majors is going to lead to their inability to climb the rankings, because you might have a Wisconsin or an Illinois that slips in the Big Ten, but you're going to have other teams, and somehow we're going to end up with a ranked Rutgers because they're going to steal 2 games, and senators will be like, oh my gosh, Rutgers is so good, they won games in the Big Ten. Yeah, but can they win games consistently throughout the whole spread? And so that's my big concern is that visibility for the mid-majors, and thus I don't think we're going to see as many mid-majors climb in there without the out-of-conference games. So hopefully they can make a big splash early and often with these multi-team events that are happening before conference games start.
Right, yeah, and I completely agree with you, especially when we're talking about the top 25. It's going to be, as of right now, what we see in the top 25, it's all power conference teams, obviously, with the exception of Gonzaga. And what we're seeing with some of these schools are just going to probably just only either do conference games or just get the teams that they can get that are in the top rankings and are in other major conferences. So it's going to be interesting to see if the voters are going to take that into consideration as well when they are deciding who should be in the top 25, if they're going to be considering, maybe if they did, maybe if they didn't, who knows what's going to be out this year. So let's go switch focus again, still talking about the changes. Changes from last year's final rankings to what we're seeing this year. Big team that is completely missing. Dayton Flyers. What on earth happened to Dayton?
So a lot of things happened to Dayton. They lost Obi Toppin. He was a beast around the net. He was averaging 20 points and 7.5 rebounds per game, which is huge. Those are, I guess, Anthony Davis-esque numbers.
And he's looking to be a really good draft pick this year.
And the Warriors have number 2, but I hope they take Killian Tilly. But they also have to respect the 3-point line, because he would put up a couple shots and at least one would go in every game. So you can't just sag it and protect the paint against him. And so really that's why they're going to hurt the most, especially with Ryan Meeksell and Trey Landers, who got second and third most average rebounds per game last year for Dayton. Those two guys are they're just gonna not be as protected because Obi would draw double teams and then they would be free to feast. And so we're also looking at they still have passing and scoring abilities from Jalen Crutcher and Ibby Watson and Rodney Chapman, but they're gonna miss the bigger skill guys down in the paint, and so it's gonna really question whether or not they can shoot. However, I will add this. Dayton should absolutely be in the top 25 because, as I saw in an article the other day, Dayton is being considered the Gonzaga of the East at this point. They have great coaching. They have routinely earned their way into the top 25 over the past several years. You can't sleep on them.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. And I didn't get a chance to really check out what their schedule is going to be looking like. I know a lot of schools are still trying to figure out what their schedule is going to be like this year and maybe or maybe not have a conference season at all. So it'll be interesting to see what Dayton does during the season. But another key team that is missing from the top 25, still getting votes, but aren't in the top 25 and were dominant and even pushing towards maybe challenging Gonzaga for that number one spot in the West last year for March Madness, San Diego State University. What was going on? What's the big change?
It's a really similar situation to Dayton. They were missing their experienced guards and rebounders with Malachi Flynn and Yanni Wetzel. Flynn had 17.6 points per game and 5.1 assists. That is a lot. And Wetzel was getting 6.5 rebounds per game. They still have Nathan Mensah, who did get a lot of rebounds last year too, and getting about 1.7 blocks per game, but not too many points. So they still have their infamous defensive capabilities, but they lost a lot of their offensive production. And so that's going to be a big reason why they're slipping. They're missing key guys, but it's not as big a hit compared for them as compared to Dayton. They've always been a little bit more of a team or a cohesive, team-oriented group as opposed to a lot of the others.
Right. Yeah, and that's also kind of like talking about like those changes that have been coming on these last from last year to this year, and especially let's just briefly talk about like what it meant to miss March Madness last year, especially for these players, because it sucks, especially when it comes to certain mid-major schools and even for some major conference schools as well. You're there for 4, maybe even 5 years, depending on transfer issues, and that's very apparent especially for mid-major schools. How I can't imagine like how that would feel to like push yourself, wait patiently to get to the moment where yes, this is now our time to at least do something in the tournament. It's just unbelievable to see like that was just kind of taken away from them.
Yeah, one major shout out right here is to Ryan Woolridge, who did his time at North Texas and then transferred to Gonzaga for his graduate transfer year because he was it wasn't North Texas. Who did he play?
Yeah, it was University of North Texas.
It was North Texas? Okay. So he played and he never made the tournament. And so then he transferred to Gonzaga where he filled in the starting point guard spot and had a great year. He improved all of his metrics across the board and helped Gonzaga reach where they were. And it was going to be his first tournament. He had earned the guaranteed spot by winning the WCC tournament, and he had the rug pulled out from underneath him, and he was not given another year of eligibility or anything like that. Heartbreaking for him, and he tweeted. He sent out a tweet when they announced the cancellation of March Madness that was absolutely heartbreaking. And so that's where it is. I was blessed as a college athlete. I redshirted my freshman year and then proceeded to go on to the national championship tournament for the next 4 years, where I didn't place very well, but I went. And I remember my senior year, or my super senior year, We lined up for our final race, and we came down the course, and it was a very terrible race. We lost by a significant margin, coming in last place, probably 4 or 5 seconds behind the second to last place, which in rowing is large. And I remember just being crushed. Like I cried. I'm gonna be honest with you on that one. I cried because that was the end of my rowing career. I have not been in a race since then, and it was crushing. And that was with closure. To be a senior athlete, to have that ripped away from you, that sucks. And you also got to look at guys like Killian Tilly, who's been fighting injuries for 2 years. He had something to prove. He had to prove that he could play at that elite level and he could be healthy for the whole tournament. And yet he didn't get that opportunity. And so that's going to hurt him in a couple of weeks during the draft. And so just from that athlete perspective, you work for the season. You work to play the whole season. You work to play all those games, but it's that closure piece. It's kind of like how you have Christmas at the end of the year. Like the whole year is great, but Christmas is where you celebrate with your family. It's where you really come together, and it's that moment of joyous celebration that they did not have, and my heart was crushed for them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely hard, especially, and it's not just to Gonzaga and all those athletes, like athletes everywhere. And I really do hope that if we do have March this year, if we do have March Madness this year, that they do like something for them, like bring them back. I'm always down to like give them like that one extra minute, like do like the first minute of every game, like it's the whoever was supposed to play last year, like those seniors that graduated for every team, would come back just for the first minute, just let everyone touch the ball, throw it out of bounds, and then just sub them out, like just so they can say that they played in March Madness. Like do something for them.
That would be nice. The other alternative would be do something sort of like a senior bowl, where it's all like the graduated senior.
Basically do Spokane
Hoop Fest. Yeah.
Hoop Fest 3-on-3 or whoever it was that graduated, and just have them all play against each other in this match.
Honestly, you could actually probably build a team from each conference with graduated seniors.
Yeah, do a conference.
Yeah. And I would love to see that Gonzaga team.
do a battle of the conference. That would be awesome. All right. So now shifting focus to the top 25 that we currently see in front of us right now. Who is staying? Because like I said, like we've seen changes throughout the years, and not only just during the season, but teams are going to drop out of the top 25. This is not going to be the top 25 that we're going to see at the end of the year. Who is not staying?
If you want guaranteed money, you put money on Gonzaga to stay top 10.
Yeah.
Top 10.
Yes.
Because they might drop. I mean, the preseason is rough.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll definitely get to Gonzaga in a little bit,
but they might drop a game or two. And looking at the top 5, Virginia might drop. I know they got a first place vote from the AP poll, but not in the coaches. And the reason why is because their famed defense and Tony Bennett's a great coach, but they can't score.
Their offense is still questionable, and it's that
shout out UMBC.
That always makes me shout out to them. Their Twitter squad is amazing. Whoever has their Twitter page, and it's funny for me personally, and I made a tweet about this too. Ken Palm rankings of everything. Because he breaks it down within everything else. It's funny because you always get those teams in like the top like 30. That's top 10 offense or top 10 defense, and then the other one is like not even top 100.
Yeah.
So Virginia's like number 1 defense
on everything.
And their offense has to be something like 122. And it's like, what is this team doing?
Also, their pace of play is like slower than molasses. They use the full 30-second shot clock, and they make you use the full 30-second shot clock.
And that's what's amazing about them too. And you get like teams like Gonzaga where it's like, nah, we'll just do 10 seconds.
Yeah.
We only need 10 seconds, and we will make sure you use 10 seconds and no more until we get to the last like 5 minutes when we're up by 30.
Yeah. No, Gonzaga is great. It's like ball screen, action. Okay, that didn't work, so let's run an actual play. But falling down the list, I like
when we get down here. Like this is the teams where you're probably going to be starting.
I like Bobby Huggins in West Virginia. I think they somehow stay in the top 25, even if it is like 24, 25, or if they fall for a week, they'll be back the next week. Shaka Smart at Texas. I got questions there. I want Shaka Smart to find the same success at Texas that he did at VCU. Mm-hmm. I would love to see them become perennially top 25 again, but we don't know. Other teams that are going to stay, I mean, we know Izzo's going to keep Michigan State competitive.
Oh, yeah, Michigan State. Yeah, a lot of like those Big 10, Big 12, ACC teams, like they're going to stay.
The problem is that there's so many of them, some of them are going to fall out.
And that's why I wonder this year, because speaking of the conference schedules, you got Pac-12, you got ACC. I think I see what you're laughing about. But speaking of the conference schedules, there's going to be an extra 2 games for a lot of these power conferences. Pac-12, instead of doing 18 games, they're going to do 20. For the, I think ACC and AAC are going to do that as well, because it's usually just 18 games, and they're just going to add an extra 2 games because they could.
It's a quality opponent.
Yeah, it's quality opponent. They're also limiting, obviously, the out-of-conference scheduling, and therefore limiting how much travel they're going to have to do throughout the season. So they're going to be.
It's a super bubble.
There may be more losses for some of these power conference teams just because of those extra games.
Well, with 2 extra games, you're guaranteed 2 extra losses distributed amongst the conference.
Right.
And so how are those going to play out? I don't think they're going to go to Dana Altman at Oregon, but I was laughing because earlier in this video, I put a very, very harsh dig on Rutgers. And yet, here they are, sitting at rank number 24.
Number 24. Do you think they're going to stay in the top 25?
They are going to fall out. They are going to be my... I'm just going to arbitrarily choose to have a vendetta against Rutgers this season. I hope they lose every single game so that way my spite is justified.
One thing that I'm just going to point out to the top 25 is, do you think this is going to be the Pac-12 staying in here? Because I like to just hate on Pac-12. I think Oregon stays. I will say Oregon stays. Again, you and I joke a lot about Pac-12 in the previous years just because Gonzaga has their number on them. So, does Pac-12 have multiple teams in the top 25 for once?
So, as somebody who was born in California and grew up in Eugene, Oregon, and became a fan of Wazoo because somebody had to be a fan of Wazoo, I want to like the Pac-12. And here's the other thing, is Oregon, you've been to the national title game in football twice in the past, 10 years. And that's also a huge deal to me. But Pac-12, can you please stop being bad at everything? You cannot call yourself the Conference of Champions and then choke every offseason. What is this? Bill Walton, I love you. But, call out your conference, my man. Okay, so your question, does the Pac-12 stay in there? Yes. I think Oregon stays up there. I think ASU stays in there. UCLA, I am sketch about because who was their coach who had their kid on the team who, it seemed like he was just there to get his kid a free UCLA education.
Oh, I mean, that's UCLA in general, especially with what's coming out with some celebrities. Yeah, I know.
That was USC.
Oh, okay, my bad. Pac-12, my bad. My bad. Pac-12, you're all the same. Yeah. So then do you see Arizona getting into the top 25?
No.
As much as I hate Arizona, especially.
No, absolutely not. Arizona, Sean Miller, if you can't make a Final Four with a roster you paid over $1 million for.
Quite literally paid.
Literally paid.
And he's back to the FBI investigations again, or something like that.
It's okay. Northern Arizona's going to get suspended, and it's going to be fine. So like, no, Arizona. I know this sounds super ironic coming from a Gonzaga fan, but until you make a Final Four,
just no. So like, I think a few schools, Oregon leading the way, and some other schools in there. I want UW to like maybe kind of get it, kind of like how you want your little brother to like get something.
That's a perfect way to describe UW to Gonzaga. Is just a little brother.
You're like, come on, buddy. I know you can.
But like UW, like you're old enough. You should know how to walk. So get off your butt, get off your hands and knees, and walk.
What I didn't know this about UW until Zagaholic, I think, tweeted about it on Twitter, was that in the Mark Few era,
They have won one game?
Mark Few has only lost once to UW. That blew my mind when I saw that.
So apparently UW can't beat Oregon in football and can't beat Gonzaga in basketball, yet loves to talk smack to both of them about it because they won a national championship like back when their grandparents played.
Right. So then, okay. So I guess for me, I want to say the top 25. I feel like you're just gonna more cheer against Rutgers, I guess. You don't want them in the top 25. I don't know if you think that they'll actually stay there, but I think for
I don't know anything about that.
I think for me, the top 25, I don't know. Like, I think it's like Oregon's going to be up there. And like, I'm going to be focusing on Pac-12 just because I just love to hate Pac-12 just as
West Coast, Best Coast.
Just as the West. I mean, I love to hate them. But like, in terms of like a West Coast feel, yes, I would love for Pac-12 to just always be representing the West Coast. But again, I love to hate them. So I think Oregon's just going to be the only top 25 team in the Pac-12 this year.
Well, I mean, looking back at it, they have nobody in the top. ASU's their highest ranked at 18.
Right. Yeah. There's no one. Yeah. There's no one up above that.
It makes sense for them to probably struggle. I think two teams, maybe a third, but the only one I'm willing to put money on is Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon to stay.
Now watch, Oregon goes 0-20.
Oregon pulls the UW of like 2 years ago when they were number 25 and they just lost every Pac-12 game.
Yep.
Okay. So now let's wrap it up. Let's shift our focus to our team, Gonzaga University, the Bulldogs. As we said before, Mark Few checked off another box of his. Preseason number 1. He's won multiple WCC titles, not only during the season, but also the tournament. Mark Few has been ranked number 1 a handful of times just throughout the season. And now Mark Few can finally say he was number 1 before the season started. Mark Few can also say that he's been to the Final Four. He's been to the championship. He has not done the thing.
Get the number 1 recruit in the nation.
He has.
Chad Holmgren, if you're watching this, go Zags.
But like I said, Mark Few has not done the thing. Is this the year to do the thing?
The thing is in like, may the force be with you?
The thing as in being the thing. The final thing that you want.
I already
that
said
actually
this.
happens in April, not in March.
This is. I already said this. I don't want it this year. Like I want to see them like go undefeated, make it to the second round, and then have everything shut down because everybody got COVID. Because that's like.
Let me say this to you. Doesn't it make sense that this would be the year that Gonzaga...
That's the problem! That is the problem!
It is the year that you...
They will not stop the trolls. The trolls will be like, yeah, but the pandemic. Oh, but this team had so many cases. Blah, 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 blah. This is like, no, the Dodgers did not win the World Series. I'm sorry. That did not happen. Like, They won the baseball playoffs. They did not win the World Series. And thus, I don't want Few to win it this year unless he repeats again next year. Because next year matters more to me, assuming we get a vaccine and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
but that matters more to me than this year because, again, the trolls will not be satiated with the asterisks.
No, and I understand the trolls, but again, let's talk about the team.
April's gonna be hashtag asterisks.
But let's at least just look at the team that we do have this year. Obviously, from last year, what we don't have is Killian Tilly, like you mentioned before. We don't have Ryan Woolridge, who made a big impact on the point guard role. We also don't have Admon Gilder either, who was that backup role there to just keep the momentum going. Like, he played a key part there. He's not going to be there. And Philip Petrusev.
Not hashtag. Low key, I honestly think Philip Petrusev needs to get a sponsorship from Butterfingers based off of his ability to be in the post with the ball in his hands and then be in the post without the ball in his hands going, where did the ball go?
But we don't have those guys, and we don't have some depth guys as well. But let's see who we still have this year. We still have Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi, Drew Timme, and we have Anton Watson, who was... we do have Anton Watson again, who was hurt for pretty much all of last season. Mm-hmm. But he still played a key part in those games that he's back.
He got important minutes with basically a broken shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so the fact that he got surgery and he's had basically a full year to heal it. His last games he played were in the Bahamas, which was Thanksgiving a year ago, and that shoulder surgery takes 10 months to recover. It's been 10 months. So, also speaking from personal experience. So he's going to come back. And the other thing is, we don't need his scoring. We need the fact that he is freakishly long and will be a defensive stalwart.
Speaking of the defense, if you get past Anton Watson on defense, who do you have to go through next?
Well, when it's not Drew Timme, you have a guy by the name of Baby Shaq.
Yeah, we have Ballo, who is like 7'1", 200 and how many pounds upon that?
I don't know, but didn't he also just turn 18?
I think so.
But yeah, we have Baby Shaq, who is honestly, when I was looking at the scrimmage, definitely more agile than Shimmick Karnowski.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not only going to be like
Shimmick was the
big guy on defense, he can also at least laterally move left to right and get around the guy on offense.
Yeah, Shemmick was basically like the Berlin Wall. Like, you do not cross the Berlin Wall.
Right.
But Ballo's just going to be a lot more in the style of Brandon Clark, where he's going to be like, no.
Right, yeah. And not obviously not as fast. He will just be a solid post.
Yes.
There. But definitely a little bit more agile than what we were saying about Karnowski. And then, who else do we have? Who were the freshmen this year?
So we also picked up what's called the Tricky Trio. Mm-hmm. We got Jalen Suggs, who was a top 5 recruit, and also a higher rated quarterback than Washington State recruited this year. So, hey, how's that? So we got Jalen Suggs, we got Julian Strother, and we got Dominic Harris, who I believe is a local Spokane product.
I think so, yeah.
And his dad's been high on him and the Zags for years, and so we love that. They all recruited each other. Basically, none of them lived in the same state.
Yeah, they're saying, I want to play with you. So basically what we're going to be doing is basically what LeBron, Wade, and who was a part of that group that went to the Heat. But basically they just did that and saying like, oh yeah, we're just going to all group together and we'll just go to Gonzaga.
I had this question like 2 weeks ago and I went and looked it up and now I'm spacing.
Yeah. They'll probably come.
D-Wade.
It's D-Wade, LeBron James. And I forget who the third person was in that group, but it's basically what that situation was.
Yeah. Hold up a second.
You're gonna need to look it up. But yeah, we're gonna see Gonzaga with what looks like a 9-man rotation. Maybe 10 if he wants to. Maybe 11 if you want to count Orlauskas and Pavel Sakharov.
You could stretch it to 11, maybe a 12-man rotation. Yeah.
Chris Bosh.
Yeah, Bosch, that's who it was.
But I mean, if you wanted to, he could stretch it to a 12-man rotation.
He could honestly play a 12-man rotation, and that's incredible considering we still have walk-ons and a transfer redshirt and Neymar on the bench.
Neymar.
So honestly, like if we were looking at WCC rankings, we have like BYU's challenger for number 2 in the WCC is going to be Gonzaga's bench.
Pretty much. that team could compete against BYU.
And so that's what's incredible is Gonzaga reloaded. For lack of a better term, they reloaded. Now they're going to be freshmen, so we got to be prepared for mental mistakes. We got to be prepared for a learning curve. But here's the thing: is Few knows how to coach. Few has developed players. They're going to progress, and they're going to be beasts come March. And if the season extends into April and May for a May Madness, that just helps Gonzaga more.
Yeah. And one thing that you're saying about like how Mark Few develops these players, but one thing that Mark Few and his coaching staff do extremely well
is grad transfers.
Get those grad transfers.
The old man defense.
Aaron Cook coming from Southern Illinois. Yes, I know Southern Illinois, whatever. And let's talk about Aaron Cook's stats. 15 points last year with Southern Illinois, 3.3 assists, so kind of getting that Admon Gilder kind of a feel going.
3.2
steals.
Quick hands.
And that's such a special thing about Mark Few. I mean, just look about not only who he has just got transferred from like mid-major conferences, but also major conferences too. And let's just look at the last 3-4 years. Admon Gilder, Texas A&M. Ryan Woolridge, North Texas. Gino Crandell, North Dakota. Helps that he put up 28 points against Gonzaga the game that they played him. So Mark Few was like, hey yo,
I got plenty of video on you already, buddy.
come here. we'll talk to you after this. Brandon Clark, San Jose State.
There were factors in that one.
Yes.
The coach leaving and the fact that the coach's brother is peripherally associated with Gonzaga.
Slight help.
No, that definitely helped. But again, it's getting these transfers.
And then Jeremy Jones recruited himself, and also don't forget
Drew Barham.
Oh yes, Barham. That's right.
Coming from Creighton.
I forget.
I feel like Gonzaga has this training program with Creighton because we gave them. Who did we give them? Grant Gibbs.
Yes, that's who it was.
Yeah, who played until he was 30.
Yeah, I did a video about that when I was last year. I did a video about that. Where I didn't do a video about him. I did a video about Creighton. You're the guy that you suggested for me to do.
Grant Gibbs.
Not Gibbs.
He's the coach's kid.
Yes, he's the coach's kid. He's in the NBA. Doug McDermott.
There we go.
That's who it was. And then let's also even talk about the year that they went to the championship. I mean, this is all from power conference schools. Jonathan Williams, Missouri, or not power conference, power conferences, not the power schools. Jonathan Williams from Missouri, Jordan Matthews, Cal Berkeley, and Nigel Williams Goss from UW. And honestly, I'm just kind of on board with whoever transfers to Gonzaga as a grad transfer. Sure, you're going to be great. You're going to fit somewhere in this rotation. You'll probably be the first or second man off the bench, maybe a starter like the 3 I just named for the championship team. But if you're the second guy off the bench, sure, I expect you to get double-digit points.
One of the things we have to mention is with that championship run,
Jonathan Williams was going against Brandon Clark every day in the practice squad.
Right.
So that was fine. But then the other thing was with Nigel Williams Goss,
point guard transfer, took a red shirt. Andrew Nembhard, point guard transfer, is on a red shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm very curious to see what that looks like in a year. But
especially if he's gonna have to do practice against Ballo, they'll basically do the same thing that they did with
he's gonna
Norvell Jr. because Norvell Jr. is redshirt.
He's got to practice against Cook and the Tricky Trio.
Yeah, he'll get the skill that way, but I mean, he'll have to do practice shots over Ballo every practice. So.
Yeah, so he's gonna be fine.
The biggest thing is if you look at the 3 most recent grad transfers with who played the point guard, you had You have Crandall, you have Woolridge, and now you have Cook. All three of them are defensive specialists, hence old man defense, hence it's a good thing.
All right. So first games that we're going to be talking about, we'll do more of the schedule recap for next week, the next week's video. So stay tuned to that because this week we still have a week off, and then Thanksgiving Day is when we play Kansas. The day after we'll play Auburn. We'll give our predictions about that stuff in the next week video. But again, final thoughts. Does Mark Few do the thing, or do we not say that yet? We don't say it. We'll have to wait to see if he does the thing. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see if Mark Few does the thing. But please, thank you all so much for watching this video. I know it's gonna be a longer video, but again, we're back to talking about college basketball. Or at least I am. You weren't in those videos when I was doing that.
Ball is life.
So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Please hit like. Please also hit subscribe if you want to hear more from us in the next weeks as we go through this whole journey. And hopefully we have a full college basketball season this year.
And follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter too. And please, until next time, please stay safe and please stay healthy.